Hey, welcome everybody to Lore Friday. My name is DM Galabond, and I'm your host. Today is Friday, May 15th, 2020, and on this edition of Lore Friday, we are going to be starting our deep dive into this different uh, adventures that make up the Princes of the Apocalypse campaign. And the place that we are going to start is, of course, in chronological order for your party. We're starting with level 1. And the very first thing is the arrival in Red Larch. So let's go ahead and get on with that particular analysis. All right, the uh, in the Princess of the Apocalypse adventure, Red Larch is a town that serves as the home base for the adventurers in the beginning of the campaign. And if they ever need some place to go back to, Red Larch is probably the closest uh, moderate sized town that has most everything that adventurers want. It's situated on the long road. It's north of Waterdeep, but it's south of Neverwinter. It's a little bit inland from both of them. So uh, there are different places that your party could go, but Red Larch serves as a nice moderate starting point for the adventurer. And the arrival in Red Larch is simply the players coming into town and sort of getting their bearings. Um, and the it's kind of broken up a little bit strangely in the adventure if you want to know the truth. Now here in chapter 6, the chapter that they call the alarms and excursions, that's where they put the elements for baby adventures, characters that are going to start at level 1 and go all the way up through the uh, as high as they can go in running the campaign. If you are looking at characters that were going to come in and start the story from the time that everybody's aware of the involvement of the elemental cults, you would then start at level 3. But this gives you a few things to ratchet your characters up from level 1 to level 3. So they start you off here with the arrival in Red Larch and just basically give you a thumbnail sketch of the town. They point out a few areas. There's the Swinging Sword, Helmet, High Sun, uh, Gaelker's Store, Ironhead Arms, Helva, uh, Helvar Tarnlar sells the adventurers clothing, and Constable Harburg keeps the peace. And so it basically just gives you that little piece of the adventure. However, if you want to really know about Red Larch and you really want your characters to interact there, you're actually forced to go back to chapter 2 and look at the deep dive that they give you on Red Larch. Because it's here where you are going to get a sketch of all of the important people they talked about in um, chapter 6. You're going to get a detail of not only their locations, but all the other locations in town. And you're going to understand how these different NPCs relate to some of the other plot points that you will run into later in the adventure. So it's kind of strange that they break this up and make it in two separate different places in the adventure. It's one of the things that I don't really like about the design of the adventure. It causes you to have to jump back and forth a little bit. So here's where you have a list of all of the important people in Red Larch. Um, you have the uh, you have information about the believers, which is a secret society that exists in Red Larch, and it's based on a finding many years ago when local miners found a secret chamber underneath the town where, due to some sort of mystical or magical forces, these enormous boulders actually will from time to time levitate a few inches off the ground and can just be pushed around by your fingertips. And then after a while that effect goes away and they fall back to the ground and they settle. And so that's become something of a local mystery, and it's only these believers that are kind of in on the fact that this mystery even exists. And then you get into some of the adventure hooks that come into Red Larch. And the strange thing is that these adventure hooks here in Chapter 2 also reference those low level adventures in Chapter 6, as well as the higher level adventures. So that's why I say it's they kind of had a hard time figuring out how to put it together, and I don't think they did very well. You know, the most useful way of using this adventure is here in D&D Beyond because everything is hyperlinked and you can jump back and forth. If you're trying to run it out of a book, you're having to flip over to these pages, and you have to flip back to those pages, and you have to flip over to these pages, and it's all just, you know, very difficult to figure out. So, as you talk to different adventurers here, you will find out about uh, some of these low level things from Into the Wilderness, Lance Rock, Tome of Moving Stones, and in the next few weeks we will detail some of those. But you also learn that within the town there are spies for the elemental cults, and there's rumors of evil in town. And then finally, you have a map complete with all the locations. And this map, when you expand it out, it's pretty good, and it's a little hard to see the way they have everything called out on the map here. Some of the numbers kind of get swallowed up by the background of the map. But then, of course, they do also give you a player version of the map that you can show to your players, which doesn't have any of that on there, and that's kind of cool. Um, and for every location in town, you normally have two or three subsections. One subsection is key NPCs. So, who are the NPCs that you will meet at this location? And then for some of them, there's like a piece of information that they have. So, at the Swinging Sword, this inn here, one of the NPCs is this Kaylessa, and she has a tale about something that's happening. And then there are rumors of evil that you hear at this particular location. And then there's a connection with Trouble in Red Larch. Now, that is the low level adventures that you see in Chapter 6. So, if you're coming here in as new adventurers, okay, oh, well, there's something for you guys to do here. All right, so then for every location, and I think there's about 21, 22 different locations throughout the town. Yeah, there's 22 locations throughout the town that you can go and investigate. And so that gives you a lot of stuff to really do. And as a DM, if you're going to run this adventure, you really do need to figure out, first of all, whether you're going to start it at level 1 or at level 3. And then if you're going to start it at level 1, you really need to understand both of the uh, sections. That section over in Chapter 6 that details the several low-level adventures. And you have to understand all of them because some of them are geared for level 1. Some of them, if a level 1 party walks in there, they're just going to get the floor mopped with them. Uh, you cannot have that rumor come out for the characters to pick up until they're level 2 or level 3. And then if you haven't looked at that and you get to this point in chapter 2 and you say, okay, great, I'm going to have a bunch of level 1 people here, and you start feeding them some of the stuff that's going on, well, then that's going to expect them to be at level 3, and they're going to go out in the wilderness and they're going to get themselves killed by the first thing that jumps out of, from behind the bushes and goes boo at them. So you really do have to kind of set up and understand both this section here to get a good sense of what's in the town, what's available in the town, all that kind of stuff. And it does really give you a nice town background that you can work with. All right, so some of the things that I normally like to talk about when I'm looking uh, at an adventure like this. I always like to go over some of the statistical stuff. So this is written Princes of the Apocalypse, which is uh, what the arrival in Red Larch comes from. That's a 5e published adventure. It was published on April 7th of 2015. Um, this particular piece that we've been talking about is suitable for tier 1, level 1. The whole theme is just explore a new location, explore this town, get to know some of the townsfolk, find out what's going on, get the lay of the land a little bit. The setting is the town of Red Larch. Teaser: Red Larch is your average Sword Coast way stop along the long road, but strange happenings are making the locals nervous. The backstory is that this sets the scene for the entire Princes of the Apocalypse campaign. Things that you discover during investigating some of these strange happenings in Red Larch are like little breadcrumbs that will then lead you towards clues that will ultimately lead you towards the presence of and the involvement of these cults of elemental evil operating in the Desserin Valley, which is the slightly larger region outside of Red Larch. Let's see. My favorite elements of this particular adventure are the town setup, the detailed listing of what's in every location, and the population of all of the NPCs that you have there. And in fact, in my Sunday game, which is the Walker of Waterdeep, I actually have used Red Larch as the stand-in for the town of Lambhold, which is in Innistrad. It's a town even out of a completely different game. Innistrad, of course, is a plane from Magic the Gathering. My characters are now in Lambhold, and as part of their adventure, they have traveled to Innistrad, trying to track down information that will help them discover where a kidnapped mentor of theirs is being held, and how to get to that person. And so I just took the map and I took all the NPCs, I renamed them into names that sound more appropriate for Innistrad, but I kept their descriptions. and all this kind of stuff. And except for anybody that's a non-human, I'd change them to human, because in Innistrad there's not a whole lot of non-humans unless they're vampires and werewolves, and that doesn't really make any sense for the townsfolk here. Then I also even took some of the side trek adventures and I adapted them for my game. So some of these rumors that they find out about in Red Larch are actually very similar to rumors that my party has found out about in Lambhold. And they're finding that the uh, locals are not really too keen to help the party do their uh, you know, go further in their mission until the party helps the town deal with all the stuff that's going on and bothering them. So that's kind of the thing I like, is it gives you not only a town but a whole little ecosystem around the town that you can very neatly take out, plop into a homebrew campaign, and repurpose some of the stuff around while still leaving some of those elements in there. So that's the thing that I really like about this adventure. Um, and, you could use this because it's a town and all the people you're dealing with is townsfolk. You could easily use this with any other edition of the game. Just just take out the people that were here before and put in the people that make sense for your edition. And, change the stat blocks to match the edition, because they're all just humanoids and they're all the standard races. There's nothing super exotic about the people that you meet here in Red Larch. And so that's about it. Well, um, that is going to do it for our review of the arrival in Red Larch. I hope you have enjoyed this review of the adventure. If you would like to leave any comments, please do so down below. You'll find links to where you can find this adventure on D&D Beyond in the description down below. Also, if you can, I would love it if you could go and hit the subscribe button down at the bottom left and ring the bell. That will let you know every time I post some new content to this channel. And other than that, I hope that you all have a great week. Oh, yes, and by the way, uh, please in the comments, please let me know if there's any particular adventure you would like me to talk about on one of these other Lore Fridays. I try to use Lore Friday to discuss an adventure, not only what the uh, structure and purpose of the adventure is within the context of the campaign where it appears, but also giving you a few ideas about how you might use it in a homebrew campaign. Um, I certainly haven't used every adventure, but I like to try to think about, okay, if I were running a game and what would I use this for? How could I take this and let it stand in for something in my game? All right. Well, thank you very much, and we will talk to you later. And I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. All right. Good night, everybody.